Hey everyone, welcome back to Code the Row. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to make your very first gameplay ability system blueprint, which is just going to shoot a simple fireball. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm just going to launch a 5.5.2 project, just a blank third person blueprint project. And I'm just going to head over to games, go to third person, and I'll just call this first gas tutorial and hit create. Now when we click play, you'll see we have this very generic third-person character running around, but no gameplay ability and no way to actually cast a fireball. So what I'm going to want to do first is just head over to edit and plugins, and then I just want to look for something called gameplay ability like so. So I'm going to enable the gameplay abilities and hit restart now. After the project restarted, I'm just going to head over to Window and go to Fab. And I want to look for an FX variety pack, some sort of free pack to show our animation. So I have this FX variety pack, and I'm just going to go ahead and import that, add that to project, like so. And now you'll see on the bottom right, it says it's downloading. And now I just need an animation to actually come out of my hand and shoot in the direction I'm pointing. So I'm going to head over to mixamo.com like so. And in the search, I'm just going to type in spell to look for some sort of spell cast or spell pack. So as you can see, I have the standing 1H magic attack 01. So when I go ahead and click on this, you'll see this cool looking cast, just like my character casting a spell. I want the fireball or whatever effect to come out of my hand and shoot forward. So I'll just go ahead and click download and I'll just change FPS to 60, personal preference. I'm going to go ahead and download. And now back in Unreal Engine, I'm just going to right click and create a new folder. I'll just call this anims. And I'll go ahead and just drag and drop that animation FBX in here. It's just going to say all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. I can just go ahead and hit import. And once that's done, you'll see that it already comes with the character model. I can go ahead and place this or actually double click this to just test it out. You'll see that the character is doing exactly what it's supposed to and it looks great. So I'll go ahead and hit Control Shift S to save all and all those stars will go away, meaning that it's saved. And now I just want to go ahead and actually retarget this animation. So I'm going to right click and click retarget animations. And then for the target skeletal mesh, my BP third person character, I can just go ahead and check this out real quick, is actually just the, let's see, it is the SKM Quinn Simple. So with the retarget window, I'm just going to go ahead and select that Quinn Simple and I'll just double click the standing 1H magic to see how it looks. And it looks like the retargeting is looking perfectly great. And I'll go ahead and click export animations. And actually I'll just leave this into my anims folder that I created before. I'll just go ahead and leave this in my content like so and click export and export again. And you'll see my animation right here. I'm just leaving it here for simplicity. And now I'm just going to right click on this animation and actually just create an animation montage. So under create, you're going to see this create anim montage like so. And I'll call this AM for animation montage underscore spell attack. And now after creating that animation montage, I'll just double click to make sure it looks fine. And it looks pretty good. I'm actually going to open up that animation montage and leave this as root motion. I'm going to go ahead and enable root motion. This is just a personal preference. And now when I go back to my third person map, I'm going to right click and look for a blueprint class or click blueprint class. And then under all classes, I'm going to look for a gameplay ability. So you see under gameplay ability, I can go ahead and click select gameplay ability. And I'm just going to call this something like GA for gameplay ability underscore spell attack like so. So I'm going to go ahead and open up that GA underscore spell attack, and you'll see two nodes right off the bat, which is the event activate ability, which is pretty much just going to be what's going to happen after our ability has started. So for example, for example, playing our animation, shooting the fireball or magic spell attack out of our hand, and so on. And then on end ability, we want to just tell it that, hey, this ability is over. You can go ahead and apply that cooldown that we set for our ability so we can't just go ahead and spam it. So the first thing I'm going to do is with the event activate ability. So let me actually make some space so it's more readable. I'm going to drag out the event activate ability and look for something called a play montage and wait. So what this node is actually going to do for us is we're going to be able to select a montage to play. And this is why we created that animation montage, the AM underscore spell attack. So we can adjust settings like the rate, define the start section. So if you leave it as none, it's just going to be whatever the default is. Stop ability when ends. So basically, after it's done playing, we're going to stop the ability. Root motion scale, start time seconds, interrupts after blend out, so on. And you'll see on the right that we have a bunch of options. So we can look for on completed or just go straight into whatever's next without actually finishing the whole montage to play. Blend in, blend out, interrupted, or canceled. So, for example, if you have some tags that are going to say, if someone attacks you during your spell, you could cancel the spell or interrupt the spell, for example. There's a bunch of options that you can do. So what I want to do is while I play the montage, I actually want to go ahead and spawn in actor. And that spawn is going to be that FX variety pack that we imported, and it's going to choose one of our cascade contents. So it's going to choose one of these spells, for example. So I can have this fireball or water ball or whatever you want, really, and just shoot out of our hands. So I'm actually just going to get the name of this PKY fireball, hit F2, and copy this name. I'm going to head over to my content, right click, look for a blueprint class, and look for an actor. And I'll just call this something like BP underscore fireball. And I'll go ahead and double click to open this up. And on the top left, you're going to see these components. And I just want to go ahead and add a cascade particle system. I'm going to go ahead and look for that actual particle, which is going to be that KY fireball. And after the textures and the shaders are done loading, you'll see this really cool looking fireball. And then I just want to go ahead and add some sort of projectile movement to tell my actor that this is just going to shoot forward, right? So with projectile movement added on our components and then selected, I'll set the initial speed to something like 2000, and the max speed will also say 2000 just because I want it to stay at a consistent speed. And then I don't want any gravity. I don't want it to go down or anything. So I'm just going to set this projectile gravity scale to 0. So it's just going to go in a straight line. And now with this actor created, this BP Fireball, I'm going to go ahead and go back to my gameplay ability spell attack. And after our play montage and wait, I'm going to just go ahead and look for a spawn actor from class. And that class I want to select is going to be that BP Fireball that we just created. So now you'll notice that we have this thing called a spawn transform, which is going to tell us where we want this actor to spawn. And I want it to spawn from my hands. So in order to just get my character's hands, it's actually going to be pretty simple. So what I want to do is actually get avatar actor from actor info. And with the return value, I'm going to look for a get component by class. And the class that we're going to be looking for is going to be our skeletal mesh from our character. And that's because we want to grab the hand socket or just our hand in general from our skeletal mesh. So now from the return value of our get component by class, we're going to look for the get socket location. And then we can actually just type in the socket name that we're using and connect the return value to the spawn transform. So now I want to define the in socket name. So I'm going to go back to my character by going over to my world settings, just going over to my default pawn class or wherever your character is in your hierarchy, double clicking my blueprint third person character, going to my mesh and opening that SKM Quinn simple. And I just want to check out the skeleton. So when I have the skeleton open of my character, I'm just going to scroll down and I kind of want it to come out of something like my hand underscore R, which is going to be my right hand. So I'm just going to type in this name exactly how it is into that node over here in my GA spell attack. So I'm going to look for, or just type in hand underscore R. And for the spawn transform, you'll see the types are a bit different. So this is taking in a transform type, while this return value is returning a vector. From the spawn transform, I can just right click and split the struct pin. And I can just connect the return value of this vector to the spawn transform location over here. And as you can see from our spawn actor node, that there's some other things such as the instigator and the collision handling. You can set it to default or try to adjust location, but always spawn. Do not spawn if it's colliding with something, and so on. Just a bunch of options. And you can also click on this down arrow to open up a few more options. So you can also get the owner of the actor object reference. And there's also a transform scale method. So for the owner, you don't have to set it, but the reason why we're not going to set this to a specific owner is because every single character that has this GA underscore attack or spell attack every character that has this GA underscore spell attack will be able to actually spawn this fireball and use this montage as long as there is a hand underscore R socket name. So it'll just spawn our fireball properly. So basically, all of our humanoids with the hand underscore R socket name will be able to spawn this actor. So now we have a small issue where we're not actually defining when to shoot out the fireball. So when I go ahead and open my AM underscore spell attack, I don't want it to shoot out as soon as it starts, kind of like it's doing in our gameplay ability right now. And I also don't want to do it after the montage is completed, interrupted, or canceled, or blended in and out, blah, blah, blah. I just want it to happen at a very specific point of my animation. So I'm going to go back to my AM spell attack, and let's see. I think I want it to be right here. Basically, right when my character is doing the shoot motion, that's when I want the fireball to come out. And we'll be able to do this by making an anim notify. So now I'm just going to go back to my third person map, right click, head over to my blueprint class, and look for something called an anim notify. And I'll just go ahead and select this and click select. And I'll call this something like an underscore spell attack. And I'll double click to open this up. And on the top left, you'll notice that there are 3 overrideable functions. And the one that I want to override in this case is going to be the received notify. And from here, what I need to do is actually the only thing, since I'm doing the animation in my gameplay ability, I don't need to have some sort of animation. I also don't need an event reference because the event and animation will be defined from when I do my GA underscore spell attack, and also the animation montage is in our gameplay ability. So from our animation notify for our spell attack, I'm actually going to make sure that we get the mesh component, which is going to be the get owner tag from the component. And from the component, I actually want to look for a send gameplay ability to actor or send gameplay event to actor. And I'll just make sure these nodes are connected like so. And for the event tag, I'm actually just going to right click this and promote to a variable, and I'll just leave it as event tag. And you're going to want to do a couple things. So first, you want to compile this, and I want to make sure this I is checked. This just means that we're making the variable public. And you can also just check it by clicking instance editable over here. So you'll see as I toggle this check on and off, the I marker will go on and off over here too. So as you can see next to the variable, and I want it on. And the reason why I want it on is because I want to be able to tell my animation notify, or I want to be able to tell my anim montage that when the event actually happens. So let's go ahead and add this animation notify into our animation montage. So I'll go back to my AM spell attack, and under the notifies tab, you'll see over here that it says there's just one track. You can go ahead and add another notify track if you need multiple things to kind of overlap and just for organization. But where it says one over here, I'm just going to right click right here where this is and add and I'm going to add a notify, which is going to be that an underscore spell attack that we created. And now when I select my an underscore spell attack, you'll see under this default tab that comes up, we have an event tag. So let me go back and just show you guys real quick that if I go back to my an spell attack, my animation notify, and actually make sure it's not instance editable and hit compile, then in my animation montage, that default tag goes away. So I can't specify what tag I need to use, and I really need that for my gameplay ability. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure it's instance editable or public, hit compile, go back to my animation montage, and now I can select an event tag. So with the event tag selected in the dropdown, I'm just gonna make sure to create one. So I'll go ahead and click this plus button on the left of this search, and let's just select the source to be our default gameplay tags.ini, and the name will be, let's do attack.spell. And when I add a dot, then it's gonna add another sub layer. Let me actually go back and do that because when I tabbed out, it did not work. So now when I add a dot, you're going to see that there's like a sub level of attacks now. So when I go ahead and hit add new tag, you'll see that there's attack and then there is an attack spell. And I can also add something like attack.melee, for example. And then when I click add new tag, it's going to add a melee tag under my attacks. And you'll see that these tags there, you can basically just organize these however you want. So I'll just leave it as attack.spell in this case, like so, and you'll see the event tag that this animation montage is associated with is now the event tag. So now this event tag is going to be able to tell us that whenever we hit this point, hit this animation notify, now something's going to happen in our gameplay ability as long as we're using the same event tag that matches it. So when I go back to my gameplay ability spell attack, right after our play, montage, and wait, so I'm just going to move everything back a bit. From here, I'm going to look for a wait gameplay event, like so. So you'll see under task, there's a wait gameplay event. And now for the event tag, I can just go ahead and select that attack spell like so. So now essentially we're going to play this montage in wait for this gameplay event called attack.spell. And then I want to change this node. I don't want it to play right away. I actually want to wait for the event received. So as soon as we receive this attack.spell, then we're going to go ahead and spawn the actor BP fireball. So I'll go ahead and hit compile and save. And the event received is associated to our right here, where we have this attack.spell set up. And let's say I want my ability to actually end right after my montage is done, because the spell is already going to come out as soon as we hit the center of our animation montage. Now I just want to make sure that it ends properly. So I can just look for a end ability by right clicking anywhere and look for the end ability node like so. And I can just go ahead and connect all of these into it. So on completed, on blended out, on interrupted, on canceled, I want to end the ability. And to ensure that our ability is ending, I'm just going to debug this by calling a print string, and then I will just change this from hello to the ability ended, like so. And if you want to even out your nodes perfectly, you can just select or highlight over all the nodes that you need and hit Q on your keyboard to just straighten it out. So for example, if I have it like this and I want it to be a straight line, just hit Q and it'll automatically just straighten it out. And then you can just select and move however you want. This is really for people who just really care about their spaghetti being in a straight line. And now I want to go back to my content browser, and now let's go ahead and add a cooldown so we can't just spam this ability. So I'm going to go back to my content browser, and I'm just going to right click and click blueprint class, and I want to look for something called a gameplay effect. And with gameplay effect selected, I'm going to go ahead and hit select to create this and call this GE underscore spell cooldown. And I'll double click to open this up. And you'll see on the right, we have these duration policies, components, modifiers, executions, and so on. And you'll see from the dropdown, I can select instant, infinite, has duration, and so on. For me, for this gameplay effect, I wanted to actually just have a duration. And for the duration magnitude, I'm going to set it like a scalable float to something like 5. And this 5 will kind of represent our cooldown, which is going to tell us that we have a 5-second cooldown. I'm actually going to do a 2-second cooldown. I think 5 might be a long waiting period. And in order to tell our character or our actor that we're going to have a cooldown, I just need to add it under the component. So under component, I'm going to click this add button to add an array element, and I'm going to look for something called a grant tags to target actor. With this selected, I can go ahead and expand the target tags. And then under add tags, I just want to add something like a spell.cooldown. So under the add to inherited, I'm going to just create a new tag, and this will be called spell.cooldown, and make sure that your source is your default gameplay tags.ini. And I'll go ahead and select this tag. So now we have this spell.cooldown. So I'll go ahead and hit compile and save. And now when I go back to my gameplay ability spell attack, where my attack is actually happening, and then I just want to go ahead and click my class defaults, you'll see that we have this cooldowns or cooldown gameplay effect class. And I can go ahead and select my GE underscore spell cooldown that we created. And now I can hit compile and save. And at the very end, after we spawn the actor from our fireball, I'm just going to go ahead and commit ability cooldown. And now all I need to do after I created my gameplay ability spell attack is just add this to the ability system on our third person character. So when I go back to my BP third person character in the components tab, I can go ahead and add an ability system. So when I go ahead and add this, I can just leave it as is. And after the add mapping context in our event receive controller change in our third person default character, and after this add mapping context, I'm just going to look for the give ability from the ability system. And from here, I can just go ahead and give my character the ability. And it's probably better to do this in an array or a data table or some sort of data asset. But for tutorial purposes, I'm just going to have this pretty quick and select that GA underscore spell attack. And now under this, I'm just going to use a debug key F. So whenever I hit F on my keyboard and I press this, I just want to try and activate the ability from the ability system. And I'll do something like try activate ability by class. And by selecting it as class, you're going to be able to just select the ability to activate manually. So in this case, it's going to be that GA underscore spell attack that we assigned here. And you could also try to activate the ability by tag. So if I wanted to do it by a tag, then I could simply just promote this tag to a variable, for example, and let's just call this fireball tag. And I'll go ahead and hit compile and save. And with fireball tag selected, just remember you only need one of these. You don't need both of these. And this is just for demonstration. With fireball tag selected, I'm going to go ahead and create that a new tag, which is going to be called spell.fireball. And I'll go ahead and add this tag and select it. And I want a way to reference my gameplay ability with that tag. So when I go to my GA spell attack in class default, you'll see this asset tag, default ability tag, will actually just be that spell fireball like so. And I'll go ahead and hit compile and save. And now when I go back to my map and hit F, I should be playing this and shooting a fireball. Now you're going to see one thing is when I shoot this way or that way, it's always going to shoot forward. And that's because I never actually set the rotation. But another good thing is that when I hit F is you'll see that on the top left, it prints the ability ended and I can't actually spam my ability until those 2 seconds of cooldown are over. So let's go ahead and fix that rotation real quick. So when I go back to my GA underscore spell attack, my gameplay ability, from my get avatar actor from actor info, I simply want to drag this out and look for a get actor rotation. And I want to plug this into my spawn transform rotation. Now, because the hand underscore R socket itself isn't a isn't zero on the Y or Z axis, for example, it should spawn at an angle. So it should kind of go downwards because the hand is kind of pointing down by default. So when I go ahead and click F, you'll see it does spawn correctly, but it does go downwards, kind of like as I was saying. And also my character has a weird turn whenever I do this, but it does look pretty good. So let's try a few things. So we got the rotation correct, and now we want to kind of debug on how can we fix the, let's say, that weird turn. I just wanted to go in a straight line. So now when I go over to my hand underscore R on my skeleton, you'll notice that when I click on it, it'll say the rotation of something like -72, -10, -3. This is probably giving it that weird curve angle going downwards. So what I'm going to do here is just right click and add a new socket. And I'll just call this spell socket like so. And I'll just click F2 and copy this name with Control C. Go over to my GA spell attack and just put that socket where it says socket name like so, and hit compile and save. And now I can actually just play around with the rotation on that. So when I go ahead and hit F, you're going to see that my spell still goes downward. So I can just go over to my mannequin and let's rotate it upwards a bit and try it out. So now when I click F, and I could play around with this spell socket node and just move it to where my hand is, for example, and rotate it up and down and so on, instead of actually moving the hand node. Because if I do move the hand, all the animations will look weird if my hand is just kind of in this default pose. So I'll just undo that. Another thing you could do is actually just go over to your gameplay ability spell attack. And let's just, instead of using the spell socket, I'll go back to the hand underscore R. And what I want to do is for this get actor rotation, I'm going to right click on the return value. And then I'm going to actually just, I want to unpin this so I can, let me break this and then try it. So I can split the struct pin after I break the link. And then I also want to split the struct pin on the spawn actor node. And in this case, let's see, I only want it to go on the X and Z axis, I believe, because the Y is our up and down. So I don't really want it to move the height as it was angled downwards. So what I'm going to do is actually only connect the X and the Z. So when I go ahead, let's actually try this out. When I go ahead and hit play and shoot, my character will shoot in a good in a pretty solid line. It's not going straight just because the animation curves a bit when I click my spell attack. And that's probably just how the animation is that I got from Mixamo. Maybe it is just a bit turny. Let me also double check to see if root motion is enabled, and let me force the root lock to make sure I stay in place. Maybe that will actually help with the issue. So now when I click play, all right, so this looks, I'm still kind of turning when I start. And let me see if this actually happens with the animation montage. So when I head over to my animation montage, so you can see the bottom, my character is moving in this motion. And don't forget that you can also change when the animation spawns. So for example, if I wanted my fireball to spawn at the very start, I can just move this animation notify spell attack at the very beginning, go to my BP third person character, click play, and then as soon as I click my spell, it'll happen at the very beginning of that animation montage, as you can see here. And I have to wait for that 2-second cooldown. But yeah, that's a really simple tutorial on how to set up your gameplay ability system in your BP third person character. And don't forget that you can use tags. I highly recommend tags. It's a lot better. It's a lot more organized, especially if you leave it in like a data asset or data table, which is why I love the free plugin by Ninja Bear Studios. They really do help just not reinvent the wheel all over again. And if you want to avoid any C++, let's say you want to use gameplay ability system and have it be replicated, good for multiplayer. Like this, it's totally fine to use it like this in a single player game, in a single player environment. But for multiplayer, you want to do this not on your character, but actually on your, so you actually want to be able to do this on your player state. So to make this better for multiplayer purposes, you want to go into your C++ and just create some sort of player state and add the ability system component there. So it's shared and replicated and all that good stuff. And Ninja already has a plugin. If you head over to fab.com and just search Ninja, let's see, Ninja Bear Studio. So here's one called Ninja Gas. It has a 4.9 out of 5, which is really, really well rated. I mean, this is the best free gas plugin you can really ask for on the market right now. And it pretty much just helps you set up your gameplay ability system, expose relevant functions, helps you get started with gas using data assets, which is very, very much recommended. And they do have a bunch of other plugins if you want to make your life easier, such as inventory, combat, factions, and input. And there are some more coming out. You can check in their Discord. It's a pretty active community now, and there's a lot going on. But that is pretty much how you set up your first gameplay ability system ability, which has a cooldown and has a spell effect, an animation notify, and so on. If you need to know anything, just let me know in my Discord or in the comments below. Thanks for watching Code of the Row. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.